Okay, so thank you for the introduction. So in this presentation, I'm going to talk about how VR can be used for previsualization for creating movies. So I would like to clarify that the first author was the main contribution of this work, but he couldn't make it to the conference. So I will be presenting this work. So basically, if you know about it, so previsualization is all the tools or all the process that it's done before really doing the actual film. So we want to make sure that we know well the placement of the cameras, we know well the placement of the characters, and we have a clear idea of the narrative of the film. However, during the previsualization process, which involves complex and heterogeneous tools such as this, for example, Motion Builder or Unity 3D, in order to create this kind of the entire process, creates one main issue is the fact that the creatives lose the control of this step. So basically, the creatives, they say, are not experienced with this type of tools, so they are forced to have a closed iterative loop with the artist in order to define the different steps on the process, which can theoretically increase the time of this previsualization step, and of course increase the cost of this process. Here I just briefly talk you about several tools that exist out there to do this, but basically are kind of divided in the commercial VR authoring tools. So basically tools that are focused for artists or developed for artists who really know well their job, such as sculpting or Unity, for example. And then we have other types of tools which are more based kind of 2D tools, which are more, for example, used for example, in this case, for storyboarding. But they are kind of decoupled with the actual content for the previsualization. So you can imagine most of the previsualization is done using 3D content. So sometimes you have also this issue of using different tools. And in this industry, the pipeline and having integrated tools is extremely important for the cost reduction. So in this work, our goal or the idea was to use VR to give the control back to the creatives, so to allow them, for example, to directly work on the previsualization step, to be able to better drive the process. So before going to the tool itself, I want to have a brief words regarding the domain analysis we performed in order to determine which were the key steps in this process and what was the best way to address them. So we did this based on interviews with experts in the field, so teachers in cinema, technical directors, and directly an artist working on previsualization. And we end up with this sequential process of 3 main steps. So the first one is the storyboard. So this is kind of the static step in which the idea you want to place the characters and maybe define where the cameras will be placed to try to create this layout of the scene and the different elements that would be there. A second step, which is more, you can say, about the dynamic part of the previsualization. So how will be the camera motions, how will be this change in layout during the entire shot. And finally, we have a more technical step in which basically we introduce the constraints that we might find during the actual shooting. So we might have constraints due to the camera rigs, due to the lighting, for example. So this is the 3 main steps that we identified during these interviews. And also we gather some design requirements from the artists and the directors, and this was the main 4 points that appeared more often. So first, they want a process that is intuitive, so basically easy to use and basically a fast learning curve, which allows, of course, time is money, so they want us to be fast. And what is more important is that they want that this tool is integrated in their pipeline. So basically that you can go from one step to the other seamlessly. You don't need to make some complex model transformations and be sure that all the file formats and everything it's compatible. So this is really important for them. So now I will just briefly go into the system, basically how we develop this system and the different parts. I would say that the main goal, as I told you, is to provide a system which is intuitive and try to exploit basically the big knowledge in 3D UI and VR that's out there. So our system is divided or provides three main operational modes. So the first one is the storyboard mode. So again, it's how to create these shots. So basically, it's like pictures of what are the different steps that will be in the sequence or in the movie. Second part would be more dynamic aspects, so how the camera will move and how, for example, the actors will move on some more dynamics of the scene. And finally, at the technical mode, in which the goal is to try to add these constraints about lighting, camera control, and etc. So then the first part is some videos to illustrate is this storyboard mode. So basically, the user is able to control a virtual camera. So sorry, the video is it's a bit fast. So he can control some of the parameters of the camera, and also it's also important that he can provide some elements of the camera. For example, so in this case, well, this is the case, is the dynamic edition of the characters, and here you can see that he can add some markings in the storyboard. So here is, for example, an example of the outcome that we can have with such a tool. So basically, we have the different static shots and some elements that model, which will be, for example, the camera motion. So traveling to the right, some zoom in, some focus. So we can introduce this this language in the storyboard creation. So then once the storyboard is created, so the second part is to create these camera motions or these sequences. And basically, we can say that everything is in motion. So here, for example, you have the user which is controlling the camera by hand while the different elements are being played. And here, after that, he can visualize the actual trajectory of the camera and replay, for example, the motion. And after that, if he's happy with it, he could also edit. So we can also add some constraints. For example, we can tell the camera to follow a target. So like this, we have kind of a following sequence. So we have other modes. We can add, for example, rails to create some traveling, for example. And finally, a key step is the editing. So once you have all the shots, you want to put everything together because you might create different cameras at the same time. So you want to then try to edit and mount everything into a single video so it can be reviewed afterwards. So also the tool allows for keyframe editing. For example, in this case, for the avatar, so the user can play a bit with this. So the video is really fast. So we can add some simple keyframe editing. So here the tool is about sketching. So the quality of the outcome is not important. It's basically the overall feeling of the entire sequence. And here is the final mode, is the technical mode, and I have a video for the rig control. So here you have a complex articulated camera with a lot of degrees of freedom. So here the user can play with the rig and also by keyframing try to play the rig at different positions. So create some animations in order to basically to assess the difference. So here you can see the trajectory of the motion, and of course the user can replay the motion and correct it if necessary. So, and the final part of my talk is about how we evaluated this tool. So here, of course, the evaluation is important to have experts who basically would be the final users of this tool. And in particular, we performed 2 experiments at different stages of the prototype. In a first part so the first evaluation was in an early aspect of the prototype, in which we are focusing on the storyboard editing, so about the static part of the content. Well, sorry, no, I made a mistake. So the idea is that the participants were given these 4 images of the storyboard, and they have to reproduce the sequence. Sorry, I made a mistake here. And we have 10 users, 6 users from a film school, and 4 totally naive subjects, but with some experience in VR. And we measured, so just NASA TLX, and we assessed the quality of the different shots with experts. And the task was to create this sequence of 12 shots. I will really go rapidly. So here you have an example of the type of shot that we can get with the tool. So you might, so if you know the movie, you might know which movie it is. So basically, in general, we got good feedback from all participants. However, they have some negative comments. So first of all, they tell that the results were not professional, but here I want to highlight that this is a sketching tool, and what is also important is that we can export all the created to, for example, a classical Maya or professional tool, which can be used to refine the process afterwards. But what was a bit more complicated is the fact that they said that there were some limited editing tools. So in the early prototypes, we have like a kind of complex editing stage. You remember when you want to put the shoots one after another. However, we observed that when you increase a lot the complexity, the user begins to have trouble to use the interface, and it gets really complicated, especially using a 6 degree of freedom from interface. So then regarding the second evaluation, so here we really targeted 3 experts on the domain. So someone working in the storyboard, an animation, and edition. So we have 3 different users with 3 different profiles. And we measured the perceived usefulness, the ease of use, and the attitude towards using. But in this case, the task was free. So the idea we provided kind of like a classical green screen recording set. With here you can see the constraints I told you about the lighting and the camera conditions and the avatar. And the task was totally free, so they could do whatever they want with the task. So regarding the main comments, again, most of them, they agree that the tool is useful. And what was interesting is that one of them said that it would be good for another tool that is pitch based. So basically, you want to sell the movie, so you first need to send a draft to your editor or to the producer to see if this would be good. So they said this would be really nice. For example, the animator also liked the fact that we had a better sense of space, so because we could see the scene in 3D and really interact with them. However, all of them also found some issues in terms of the usability of the application. So basically, we need to develop a better graphical user interface. And well, we have already told you this need of interoperability. And for example, the storyboard did also say that there was some limited flexibility, especially when you need to design some facial expressions. So this was complicated with the tool, but this is something that we might look in the future. So just to conclude, so in general, so the users found this is intuitive, and all of them were able to be kind of proficient after a small training phase. And also we observed that the tool can also alter the way they perform the task. Most of the experts will use a really strong sequential phase. So they will storyboarding, dynamic, and then technical stage. But for example, the less expert, they were jumping in between, they're going back and forth, back and forth. This might also be a way to maybe try to change a bit the way they do things. And well, this is just with my concluding remarks, and I think you have all the details in the paper. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kojiro Yano from Osaka Institute of Technology. So the expert says they want the tool to be kind of compatible with other professional tools. So what kind of professional tools do you want to link this tool with?
So for example, so the application was done in Unity. Mm-hmm. So with Unity, it would be really easy to try to basically it would be a change in the interface. Another tool that we are also using a lot is Motion Builder. So it's also really used for the cinema. So are the two main tools that can be envisioned. And then the only thing is, then it's just to have some interoperability format to explore FBX, this type of format to create this interoperability. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.